example, if you're in a vacuum and you're not talking to anyone and you're not sharing ideas and you're not taking the time to really stress test those ideas with others, well, then how do you really know if what you have is ready for market or if the market wants it at all? Hello, welcome back to Bridging the Divide. I'm your host, Rolando Bonilla. I'm going to do today's episode based on an audience question. And again, thank you so much for continuing to send your questions. It's not only invigorating to get them, it's exciting to know that you're listening out there and that I've got more than one listener, and that one listener I thought was just me. but uh, but nonetheless, today's show is going to be about an audience question, and I actually thought the question was fascinating because at the core, it's something we don't really talk a lot about, but is really present in the business space. The question that I got was, is it essential to enter business with a partner? In other words, do you need a partner to get your company going? Great examples here in the Valley, Silicon Valley. Steve Jobs and Wozniak started Apple. You've got the Google guys in the garage. You got Hewlett Packard guys also in the garage starting companies. Facebook in a dorm also had partners, and so there's this kind of this recurring theme that if you have a business idea, then you have to have a partner to execute that idea. My honest answer is it depends. It depends on where you are in life. It depends on what you think is necessary to get your company going. Are you predominantly a sales oriented person? Are you the product? Are you someone who maybe enjoys more of the creative component, less the business elements that are required? I'm reminded of a story that I read about Walt Disney when he finally got his first deal. He was excited. He calls his brother Roy, and Roy, the business end of the Disney company at that time, asks him how much he made, and they both kind of reached the conclusion at the same time that um, that no profit was made because the profit wasn't accounted for in the negotiation. So, you know, it, it to me that's a good example, right? You have to have a yin, you have to have a yang. Sometimes you have that yin and yang. Sometimes you don't. I personally, when I started my company, I did start it out with a partner. We both complemented each other. We both had different skill sets that I thought were important to really get a company going. And as we grew, those skill sets continued to flourish and complement each other until we had different goals in life, which again is was totally okay. Um, but I think that was a great lesson for me that you have to really ask yourself when you enter into partnerships, what are our collective goals for the business? What are our collective goals as individuals? And is there an alignment? Because if you don't have those alignments, and I see this all the time, and not just my own company, but with others, when there isn't an alignment, then inevitably there is a shift, and either one partner leaves or the company dissolves because it can't absorb that level of adjustment. Um, the other one I see a lot of is this notion of individuals that recognize that they just have to hit the ground running, and they do what I called kind of micro partnerships. They're tapping into different people for information, for support, for investment. That's another way of doing it. If you have that type of a network and you feel comfortable doing a lot of the elements within the beginning of your company, then I think that that is a way that you can start. In other words, you don't need to have a partner to get started, is what I'm getting at. However, I do think that at the end of the day, if the goal is to build a company, then by definition, you are trying to build a team. So, not necessarily a business partner, as in we're both equal investors, but definitely at the very least, we're partners in that you bring different skill sets and resources to the table that collectively help the company move forward. So, I do prescribe to the idea that you have to have some level of partnership somewhere, whether it be a formalized legal structure, we are both partners in this, or a non-formalized business structure where I'm tapping into people for their capital, their intellectual capital, or if we're talking about employees and team members, their skill sets, their resources. Because at the end of the day, right, what's going to make your company really reach its goals is all of those different ideas and motivators kind of brought into one, and then sharpening, what's the old saying, iron sharpens iron, that push and pull, forcing the best ideas out of the company, putting the company on a competitive roadmap. I would say in my experience, again, more in the consulting space, that I tend to see the vast majority of the businesses that do well have partners or a partner, whether formal or informal, that they're constantly tapping into. I've seen a litany of consulting firms, in my experience, that have, although well intentioned, um, have a hard time really getting off the ground because they're one man, one woman shops. Again, not saying it's not possible, but I am saying that even if you are an individual, you're gonna have to tap into networks for knowledge, for clients, for support, for, I mean, sometimes just to talk to, right? So, in my experience, you can't do this in a vacuum. You do have to have partnership, whether formal or informal, because that's going to be the best way by which also to assess if your ideas make sense. Give you an example: if you're in a vacuum and you're not talking to anyone and you're not sharing ideas and you're not taking the time to really stress test those ideas with others, well, then how do you really know if what you have is ready for market or if the market wants it at all? One of the things I now am doing and I'm enjoying is going to pitch meetings, where future tech companies will come and they pitch you, and one of the first things that I see is team structure, and literally the explanation of what skill set and resources each member of the team brings to the company, and it gives you insight, right, in terms of the depth of the company, their experience, whether they actually have what it takes to actually go where they want to go. So, is it necessary to start with a partner? No. Is it necessary, in my experience, to have to form partnerships along the way? Oh, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. I look at my life specifically, and I can tell you that I am constantly on the phone with people, constantly testing ideas out, getting feedback, listening to points of view. Sometimes I don't want to hear it, but I have to hear it, because I recognize that makes me better, that makes the company better, that creates a better experience for the people around me and the people that we serve. So yeah, to answer the question, and again, keep in mind these are my experiences, the way I view the world. I do think you have to have the mindset of wanting to be partners with someone at some point, and preferably multiple someones, right? Because your clients are your partners, right? They give you feedback. They buy your product, they buy your services, they give you feedback. If you're not taking advantage of the fact that they are there supportive of you to ask them questions about why it is they purchased your product or service, what it is that they enjoy about it, what it is that they think can make you better, then you're completely missing the boat. And the reality of it is you're probably not going to be in business for too long. The other is you want partners because you want people rooting for you, um, rooting for you and telling others about your services. So, in a nutshell, I do believe that partnership is critical. I do want to make the distinction, though. You don't need to start with a partner, but I do think the concept of partnering with people needs to be deeply ingrained in your company mindset because otherwise, how do you get better? How do you learn new things? How do you determine if you're headed in the right direction? You do need that kind of natural push and pull. So that is the answer from my point of view to that question. I hope you find it helpful, and I will see you soon. Take care, everyone.